playing games no more. We taking back what is rightfully ours. Hebrews to Negroes, wake up Black America. Judah,
don't throw in the towel. Anything can happen. I know that the storm is raging now. Tomorrow will be calm, but it's gonna take a revolution. A revolution. It's gonna take a revolution. A revolution.
Wise as serpents, the strategies to learn the beast. Homeless as doves, there's a time when to keep the peace. God's battle axe, even y'all keep the peace. 40 acres of mule, that reparations piece. What if we all embody being one body? Tulsa, Black Wall Street was filled with bodies. I am Malcolm X, we are Marcus Garvey. Hello, Haile Selassie, the whole lottie-dottie. I am a highest knight, we in Yahuwah's army. Yahweh, it's Yah's way, whichever route we going. For a future, history just might be tarnished. After darkness, there just might be some Paris morning. Think upon it, we the pawns that they feast upon. If we the kings and queens, then swords gotta be drawn. Wake up, Hebrews, the unity is needed more. Fist up, revolution. Yeah.
Anything can happen. I know that the storm is raging now. Tomorrow will be calm, but it's gonna take a revolution. A revolution. It's gonna take a revolution.
Revolution.
A revolution.
Spiritual revolution. Yeah. No more propaganda. Be silent no more. We ain't scared of your Mirandas. Call us by our name. It don't seem like you can handle it. Your system we dismantling. We done searched over the land and turned out y'all all scandalous. Overthrow it all in the spirit. To be cornered like an overthrown ball with no receiver. It's a revolution. Started in our mind and it's really televised. Now the world can see the truth. Out the box they telling lies. No flag, warning shots, no blood. False flag, stars, banners waving. We like bye bye Babylon. With our wooden planks we gon' carry on. If the ball in our hands long, we gon' carry it home. My brother's modern day Christmas addicts. Going home party, ain't talking repub, Democratic. He done heard the people cry who also diplomatic. Yeah, anything can happen now. It's the fight of your life and we ain't talking no backing down.
Anything can happen. I know that the storm is raging now. Tomorrow will be calm, but it's gonna take a revolution. A revolution. It's gonna take a revolution. A revolution. Yeah. All we ever wanted was restitution. Yeah. But then they devise ways to lock us up in prison. Yeah. Master taught us how to be a good Christian. Hey. But we're the black disciples of the revolution. So wake up, we are stronger with more than one. Second Exodus, our freedom has just begun. The kingdom is here, you better take it. Came a long way from them slave ships. We don't care about them blue honeys. We treasure hunting. Don't throw in the towel. Throw in the towel. It can happen. Anything can happen. I know that the storm is raging now. Tomorrow will be calm. We'll be calm. Take a revolution. A revolution. A revolution. We need a revolution. Revolution. A revolution. A revolution.
This ostrich is strutting her stuff as if she's walking down the runway. That's right, she moves just like a supermodel. Hey, ostrich, work it, girl.
In the wilderness of Sinai, the Lord spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting, commanding him to take a census of the whole Israelite community. Every male aged 20 and older, able to serve in the army, was to be counted by their ancestral tribes and families. The total number of men fit for military service came to 603,550. The Levites, however, were not counted among them, as they were set apart to care for the tabernacle and its furnishings. The tribes of Israel were assigned specific places to camp around the tabernacle, ensuring order and organization. Each tribe had its own leader and banner. The tribe of Judah, with its large numbers, camped on the east side, followed by Issachar and Zebulun. To the south were Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. On the west side were Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali camped to the north. The Levites camped around the tabernacle itself to protect the community from the wrath of the Lord if anyone else came near. The Lord gave detailed instructions on the duties of the Levites, dividing them into 3 clans: the Kohathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites. Each clan had specific responsibilities regarding the tabernacle's structure and its sacred items. The Kohathites were in charge of the sanctuary's most sacred objects. The Gershonites managed the curtains and coverings, and the Merarites took care of the frames and pillars. God also instructed Moses on the purification of the camp, emphasizing the importance of holiness. Anyone who was unclean due to a skin disease or contact with a dead body had to be sent outside the camp until they were purified. Additionally, there were laws regarding restitution for wrongs committed and the procedure for a woman suspected of infidelity. The Nazirite vow was introduced, allowing individuals to dedicate themselves to the Lord through a period of abstinence from wine, cutting their hair, and avoiding contact with the dead. At the end of their vow, they offered sacrifices and shaved their heads as a symbol of their commitment. The leaders of Israel brought offerings for the dedication of the altar. Each day for 12 days, one leader from each tribe brought offerings of silver, gold, grain, incense, and animals for sacrifice. These offerings symbolized the unity and devotion of the tribes to the Lord. The Lord spoke to Moses again, instructing him to set up the 7 lamps on the lampstand in the tabernacle, ensuring they illuminated the area in front of it. The Levites were then consecrated and purified for their service, symbolizing their total dedication to the Lord. As the Israelites prepared to leave Sinai, the Lord gave instructions on the use of silver trumpets to signal the community. The trumpets were to be blown to call the community together, announce the time to set out, and alert the people during times of war or celebration. On the 20th day of the 2nd month of the 2nd year, the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle of the covenant law, and the Israelites set out from the desert of Sinai. The Israelites had begun their journey from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land, but soon they started to complain about their hardships. Their grumbling displeased the Lord, and his anger was kindled. Fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses, who prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. This place was called Taberah, meaning burning, because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. Despite this warning, the people continued to grumble. They longed for the variety of foods they had in Egypt: fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. They grew tired of the manna, the miraculous food that the Lord provided each day. The manna was like coriander seed and looked like resin. The people would gather it, grind it, cook it, and make it into cakes that tasted like something made with olive oil. But now, their craving for meat grew intense, and they wept aloud, each family at the entrance of their tents. Moses was deeply troubled by the people's complaints and went to the Lord, overwhelmed by the burden of leading them. He prayed, "I am your servant, Lord, so why are you doing this to me? What have I done to deserve this? You've made me responsible for all these people, but they're not my children. You told me to nurse them along and to carry them to the land you promised their ancestors. They keep whining for meat, but where can I get meat for them? This job is too much for me. How can I take care of all these people by myself? If this is the way you're going to treat me, just kill me now and end my miserable life." The Lord responded by instructing Moses to gather 70 elders of Israel, known to be leaders and officials, and bring them to the tent of meeting. There, the Lord would take some of the spirit that was on Moses and put it on them so they could share the burden of the people. The Lord also promised to provide meat for the people. He told Moses that they would eat meat not just for a day or two, but for a whole month until it came out of their nostrils and became loathsome to them, because they had rejected the Lord who was among them, and had longed for Egypt. Moses questioned how this could be possible given their large numbers, but the Lord assured him that his power was not limited. Moses gathered the 70 elders, and the Lord came down in a cloud and spoke with him. He took some of the Spirit that was on Moses and placed it on the 70 elders. When the Spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they did not do so again. 2 men, Eldad and Medad, who were listed among the elders but had remained in the camp, also had the Spirit rest on them, and they prophesied there. A young man ran to tell Moses, and Joshua, Moses' assistant, urged Moses to stop them. But Moses replied, "Are you jealous for my sake? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit on them." Then the Lord sent a wind that drove in quail from the sea, which fell around the camp in great quantities. The people spent all day, night, and the next day gathering the quail, and they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it could be consumed, the Lord's anger burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. This place was named Kibroth Hattava, meaning graves of craving, because there they buried the people who had craved other food. From Kibroth Hattava, the Israelites traveled to Hazeroth and stayed there. Although Moses was the most humble person in all the world, Miriam and Aaron started complaining. Moses had no right to marry that woman from Ethiopia. Who does he think he is? The Lord has spoken to us, not just to him. The Lord heard their complaint and told Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to come to the entrance of the sacred tent. There the Lord appeared in a cloud and told Aaron and Miriam to come closer. Then, after commanding them to listen carefully, he said, "I, the Lord, speak to prophets in visions and dreams, but my servant Moses is the leader of my people. He sees me face to face, and everything I say to him is perfectly clear. You have no right to criticize my servant Moses." The Lord became angry with Aaron and Miriam, and after the Lord left and the cloud disappeared from over the sacred tent, Miriam's skin turned white with leprosy. When Aaron saw what had happened to her, he said to Moses, "Sir, please don't punish us for doing such a foolish thing. Don't let Miriam's flesh rot away like a child born dead." Moses prayed, "Lord God, please heal her." But the Lord replied, "Miriam would be disgraced for 7 days if her father had punished her by spitting in her face. So make her stay outside the camp for 7 days before coming back." The people of Israel did not move their camp until Miriam returned 7 days later. Then they left Hazeroth and set up camp in the Paran desert. As the Israelites camped in the desert of Paran, the Lord instructed Moses to send men to explore the land of Canaan, which he was giving to the Israelites. Moses selected one leader from each of the 12 tribes to go on this reconnaissance mission. Among them were Caleb from the tribe of Judah and Hoshea, who Moses called Joshua, from the tribe of Ephraim. Moses gave the spies specific instructions. They were to see what the land was like, whether the people living there were strong or weak, few or many, what kind of land they lived in, whether it was good or bad, and what kinds of towns they lived in, whether they were unwalled or fortified. They were also to see if the soil was fertile or poor, and if there were trees. Finally, they were to bring back some of the fruit of the land. It was the season for the first ripe grapes. The 12 spies set out and explored the land from the desert of Zin as far as Rehob, near Lebo Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where they saw the descendants of Anak, including Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai. Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they reached the valley of Eshcol, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. It was so large that 2 of them had to carry it on a pole between them, along with some pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites cut there. After 40 days of exploration, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. They reported to the entire assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account: "We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. They described the various people living in the land. Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." However, the other men who had gone up with him disagreed. They spread a bad report among the Israelites, saying, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Their report caused fear and discouragement among the Israelites, leading to a pivotal moment of doubt and rebellion against the plans of the Lord. After the Israelites heard the report from the 12 men who had explored Canaan, the people cried all night and complained to Moses and Aaron, "We wish we had died in Egypt or somewhere out here in the desert. Is the Lord leading us into Canaan, just to have us killed and our women and children captured? We'd be better off in Egypt." Then they said to one another, "Let's choose our own leader and go back." Moses and Aaron bowed down to pray in front of the crowd. Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes in sorrow and said, "We saw the land ourselves, and it's very good. If we obey the Lord, he will surely give us that land rich with milk and honey. So don't rebel. We have no reason to be afraid of the people who live there. The Lord is on our side, and they won't stand a chance against us." The crowd threatened to stone Moses and Aaron to death. But just then, the Lord appeared in a cloud at the sacred tent. The Lord said to Moses, "I have done great things for these people, and they still reject me by refusing to believe in my power. So they will no longer be my people. I will destroy them, but I will make you the ancestor of a nation even stronger than theirs." Moses replied, "With your mighty power you rescued your people from Egypt, so please don't destroy us here in the desert. If you do, the Egyptians will hear about it and tell the people of Canaan. Those Canaanites already know that we are your people, and that we see you face to face. And they have heard how you lead us with a thick cloud during the day, and flaming fire at night. But if you kill us, they will claim it was because you weren't powerful enough to lead us into Canaan as you promised. Show us your great power, Lord. You promised that you love to show mercy and kindness, and you said that you are very patient, but that you will punish everyone guilty of doing wrong, not only them, but their children and grandchildren as well. You are merciful, and you treat people better than they deserve. So please forgive these people, just as you have forgiven them ever since they left Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, "In answer to your prayer, I do forgive them. But as surely as I live, and my power has no limit, I swear that not one of these Israelites will enter the land I promised to give their ancestors. These people have seen my power in Egypt and in the desert, but they will never see Canaan. They have disobeyed and tested me too many times. But my servant Caleb isn't like the others. So because he has faith in me, I will allow him to cross into Canaan, and his descendants will settle there." Now listen, Moses. The Amalekites and the Canaanites live in the valleys of Canaan, and tomorrow you'll need to turn around and head back into the desert toward the Red Sea. The Lord told Moses and Aaron to give this message to the people of Israel. "You sinful people have complained against me too many times. Now I swear by my own life that I will give you exactly what you wanted. You will die right here in the desert, and your dead bodies will cover the ground. You have insulted me, and none of you men who are over 20 years old will enter the land that I solemnly promised to give you as your own. Only Caleb and Joshua will go in. You were worried that your own children would be captured, but I, the Lord, will let them enter the land you have rejected. You will die here in the desert. Your children will wander around in this desert 40 years, suffering because of your sins, until all of you are dead. I will punish you severely every day for the next 40 years, 1 year for each day that the land was explored. You sinful people who ganged up against me will die here in the desert." 10 of the men sent to explore the land had brought back bad news, and had made the people complain against the Lord. So he sent a deadly disease that killed those men. But he let Joshua and Caleb live. The people of Israel were very sad after Moses gave them the Lord's message. So they got up early the next morning and got ready to head toward the hill country of Canaan. They said, "We were wrong to complain about the Lord. Let's go into the land that he promised us." But Moses replied, "You're disobeying the Lord. Your plan won't work, so don't even try it. The Lord refuses to help you because you turned your backs on him. The Amalekites and the Canaanites are your enemies, and they will attack and defeat you." But the Israelites ignored Moses and marched toward the hill country, even though the sacred chest and Moses did not go with them. The Amalekites and the Canaanites came down from the hill country, defeated the Israelites, and chased them as far as the town of Hormah. After the rebellion and its consequences, the Lord spoke to Moses, giving further instructions for the Israelites when they enter the promised land. He commanded that when they make offerings to the Lord, burnt offerings, grain offerings, drink offerings, or offerings for special vows, they must accompany these with specific measures of flour mixed with oil and wine. These offerings were to be presented as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, whether they were made by native-born Israelites or foreigners living among them. The Lord emphasized that the same laws and regulations applied to both groups, ensuring unity and consistency in worship practices. The Lord also addressed unintentional sins, providing a way for the community or individuals to seek atonement through specific sacrifices. If the whole community sinned unintentionally, they were to offer a young bull as a burnt offering and a goat as a sin offering. For individuals who sinned unintentionally, a female goat was to be offered. However, for those who sinned defiantly, showing contempt for the Lord, the punishment was severe, and they were to be cut off from their people. Additionally, an incident occurred where a man was found gathering wood on the Sabbath, and upon the Lord's command, he was stoned to death by the community. To help the Israelites remember and obey all the Lord's commands, the Lord instructed them to make tassels on the corners of their garments with a blue cord, serving as a visual reminder to live a holy and obedient life. Korah, son of Izhar, was a Levite from the Kohathite clan. One day he called together Dathan, Abiram, and On from the Reuben tribe, and the four of them decided to rebel against Moses. So they asked 250 respected Israelite leaders for their support, and together they went to Moses and Aaron and said, "Why do you think you're so much better than everyone else? We're part of the Lord's holy people, and He's with all of us. What makes you think you're the only ones in charge?" When Moses heard this, he knelt down to pray. Then he said to Korah and his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will show us the person He has chosen to be His priest, and that man will faithfully serve Him. Korah, here is what you and your followers must do. Get some fire pans, fill them with coals and incense, and place them near the sacred tent, and the man the Lord chooses will be His priest. Korah, this time you Levites have gone too far. You know that the God of Israel has chosen you Levites from all Israel to serve Him by being in charge of the sacred tent, and by helping the community to worship in the proper way. What more do you want? The Lord has given you a special responsibility, and now, Korah, you think you should also be His priest. You and your followers have rebelled against the Lord, not against Aaron." Then Moses sent for Dathan and Abiram, but they sent back this message: "We won't come. It's bad enough that you took us from our rich farmland in Egypt to let us die here in the desert. Now you also want to boss us around. You keep promising us rich farmlands with fertile fields and vineyards. But where are they? Stop trying to trick these people. No, we won't come to see you." Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Don't listen to these men. I haven't done anything wrong to them. I haven't taken as much as a donkey." Then he said to Korah, "Tomorrow you and your followers must go with Aaron to the Lord's sacred tent. Each of you take along your fire pan with incense in it and offer the incense to the Lord." The next day the men placed incense and coals in their fire pans and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the sacred tent. Meanwhile, Korah had convinced the rest of the Israelites to rebel against their two leaders. When that happened, the Lord appeared in all His glory and said to Moses and Aaron, "Get away from the rest of the Israelites so I can kill them at once." But the two men bowed down and prayed, "Our God, you gave these people life. Why would you punish everyone here when only one man has sinned?" The Lord answered Moses, "Tell the people to stay away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Moses walked over to Dathan and Abiram, and the other leaders of Israel followed. Then Moses warned the people, "Get away from the tents of these sinful men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you'll be wiped out." So everyone moved away from those tents, except Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and their families. Moses said to the crowd, "The Lord has chosen me and told me to do these things. It wasn't my idea. And here's how you will know. If these men die a natural death, it means the Lord hasn't chosen me. But suppose the Lord does something that has never been done before. For example, what if a huge crack appears in the ground, and these men and their families fall into it and are buried alive, together with everything they own. Then you will know they have turned their backs on the Lord. As soon as Moses said this, the ground under the men opened up and swallowed them alive, together with their families and everything they owned. Then the ground closed back up, and they were gone. The rest of the Israelites heard their screams, so they ran off, shouting, "We don't want that to happen to us!" Suddenly the Lord sent a fire that burned up the 250 men who had offered incense to him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron's son Eleazar to take the fire pans from the smoldering fire and scatter the coals. The pans are now sacred because they were used for offering incense to me. Have them hammered into a thin layer of bronze as a covering for the altar. Those men died because of their sin, and now their fire pans will become a warning for the rest of the community." Eleazar collected the pans and had them hammered into a thin layer of bronze as a covering for the altar, just as the Lord had told Moses. The pans were a warning to the Israelites that only Aaron's descendants would be allowed to offer incense to the Lord. Anyone else who tried to would be punished like Korah and his followers. The next day the people of Israel again complained against Moses and Aaron. "The two of you killed some of the Lord's people." As the people crowded around them, Moses and Aaron turned toward the sacred tent, and the Lord appeared in his glory in the cloud covering the tent. So Moses and Aaron walked to the front of the tent, where the Lord said to them, "Stand back, I am going to wipe out these Israelites once and for all." They immediately bowed down and prayed. Then Moses told Aaron, "Grab your fire pan and fill it with hot coals from the altar. Put incense in it, then quickly take it to where the people are and offer it to the Lord, so they can be forgiven. The Lord is very angry, and people have already started dying." Aaron did exactly what he had been told. He ran over to the crowd of people and stood between the dead bodies and the people who were still alive. He placed the incense on the pan, then offered it to the Lord and asked him to forgive the people's sin. The disease immediately stopped spreading, and no one else died from it. But 14,700 Israelites were dead, not counting those who had died with Korah and his followers. Aaron walked back and stood with Moses at the sacred tent. The Lord told Moses, "Call together the 12 tribes of Israel, and tell the leader of each tribe to write his name on the walking stick he carries as a symbol of his authority. Make sure Aaron's name is written on the one from the Levi tribe. Then collect all the sticks. Place these sticks in the tent right in front of the sacred chest where I appear to you. I will then choose a man to be my priest, and his stick will sprout. After that happens, I won't have to listen to any more complaints about you." Moses told the people what the Lord had commanded, and they gave him the walking sticks from the 12 tribal leaders, including Aaron's from the Levi tribe. Moses took them and placed them in the Lord's sacred tent. The next day, when Moses went into the tent, flowers and almonds were already growing on Aaron's stick. Moses brought the 12 sticks out of the tent and showed them to the people. Each of the leaders found his own and took it. But the Lord told Moses, "Put Aaron's stick back. Let it stay near the sacred chest as a warning to anyone who might think of rebelling. If these people don't stop their grumbling about me, I will wipe them out." Moses did what he was told. The Israelites cried out to Moses, "We're done for and doomed if we even go near the sacred tent." In the wilderness, the Lord spoke directly to Aaron, making it clear that he and his sons, along with their father's family, the Levites, were to take on the weighty responsibility of caring for the sanctuary and the priesthood. This duty was not just a privilege, but a solemn charge, as any mistakes or breaches of the sacred duties would result in severe consequences. Aaron and his sons were to ensure that no unauthorized person approached the sacred objects or the altar, as this was a responsibility reserved exclusively for them. The Levites, who were given to assist Aaron and his sons, were to help with the work of the tent of meeting, but were not allowed to come near the most holy things. The Lord emphasized that the priesthood was a precious gift to Aaron and his descendants, a covenant of service that required dedication and respect. The Lord also provided for the needs of the priests and Levites. He declared that the priests would receive a portion of the offerings brought by the Israelites, including the best of the grain, oil, and wine, as well as the first fruits and various offerings dedicated to the Lord. These holy gifts were for the priests and their families to eat, but only within the sanctuary, as they were considered sacred. For the Levites, who were not given a land inheritance like the other tribes, The Lord assigned the tithes brought by the Israelites as their inheritance in return for their service at the tent of meeting. From these tithes, the Levites were to offer a portion, a tithe of the tithes, to the priests as an offering to the Lord. This arrangement ensured that both the priests and Levites were supported as they faithfully carried out their sacred duties, reinforcing the importance of their roles in maintaining the spiritual well-being of the Israelite community. The Lord gave Moses and Aaron instructions for a special ritual of purification. The ritual centered around the sacrifice of a red heifer, a rare and unblemished cow. The heifer was to be slaughtered outside the camp, and its blood was to be sprinkled 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting. The entire animal, including its hide, flesh, blood, and offal, was to be burned. As the heifer burned, the priest was to throw cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet wool into the fire. The ashes from this sacrifice were to be collected and stored in a clean place outside the camp, to be used in a purification water mixture for the Israelites. This purification water, made from the ashes of the red heifer mixed with fresh water, was essential for cleansing anyone who became ritually unclean through contact with a dead body. If someone touched a dead body, they would be considered unclean for 7 days. On the 3rd and 7th days, they were to be sprinkled with the purification water. After washing their clothes and bathing, they would be clean by evening. If they did not undergo this purification, they would remain unclean and be cut off from the community, as their impurity would defile the Lord's sanctuary. This ritual was established as a lasting ordinance for the Israelites, ensuring that they could maintain purity and continue their worship and service to the Lord. The people of Israel arrived at the Zin Desert during the 1st month and set up camp near the town of Kadesh.
Len Harvey initiated the formation of the Tuli breed in the Wanda district in southern Rhodesia. Len, who was a land development officer, was also tasked with the supervision of routine dipping of native cattle. It was during this duty that he noticed a superior indigenous cattle breed that he believed would do much better than imported European breeds.
Daar is 'n beesteras wat letterlik en figuurlik die stof opskop in die beeswêreld wêreldwyd. Dit is die Tuli, 'n suiwer Sanga-bees gebore in Zimbabwe uit uiters gaarde voorouers. Dit is in veld soos hierdie hier in Zimbabwe dat daar in die 40e jare 'n knap veekundige besef het dat onder die swart mense se beeste daar 'n tipe was wat bo die ander presteer het. Hy het geselekteer, verder gevat en vandag het ons die Tuli, 'n ras, 'n suiwer Sanga-ras, Afrika-ras wat besonder goed presteer en groot opspraak maak in die beeswêreld. Kom kyk saam met my verder na hierdie besondere bees. Maar hoe het hierdie veredelingsproses begin? Len Harvey, vader van die ras, vertel self.
I've always been cattle-minded, always, nothing else. Conservation, yes, I was taught that. But anyway, I used to go down the low areas, the low veld down below Gwanda. That's the area I was in charge of, right up to Bilingwe and all the top here. And I noticed that these cattle that they had down there, and they've selected obviously over the hundreds of years the families had, and these cattle were all much of a muchness. Very nice cattle. And I thought, well, there was a potential to these cattle. If you selected them and did them properly, you might get somewhere. And so I decided to try and get the government interested in selecting and breeding up a herd. Took some time, but eventually I got there. That's how I started in 1946.
Seleksie vir 'n mediumraam, effekleurige poenskopbeestipe met goeie produksie-eienskappe word nou al vir meer as 50 jaar doelgerig en met groot welslae toegepas.
Down at Tuli for 32 years, 96.5%. Over 32 years. Every year without fail.
That is a phenomenal percentage,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And of course the big trouble there was those 4% or whatever, or 4.5%, they were nearly always old cows. I had cows 20 years old still calving. Well, at the end they wouldn't calve, so that dropped you again, you see. But I used to breed them as long as I could. Get longevity into them. If a cow was a good cow, I'd keep her. If she wasn't, of course, she'd just go off to slaughter. But if she was breeding a good calf every year, I'd keep her until she couldn't stand anymore.
After 4 years, he persuaded senior officials in his department of the potential of this indigenous breed and of the advantages of improving indigenous cattle through selection. He was allowed to start a Tuli breeding station, and by 1955, the Tuli was recognized as an indigenous Rhodesian breed. The first Tulis were introduced to South Africa in 1977. This had a huge impact on the Tuli breed, as for the first time a broader community of cattle breeders was made aware of the breed. In 1981, a Tuli bull won the Warm Baths Agricultural Show, and this set the Tuli on its path not only to recognition in South Africa, but eventually recognition worldwide. Why does the Tuli do so well under local South African conditions?
That are in harmony with the environment, that have no stresses that will affect fertility. And this is where the Tuli fits in. And if you remember yesterday, we could walk in between them. They're not bothered. I took a series of pictures of a cow just licking her calf, grooming her calf. And that mother, that maternal instinct of these animals is fantastic, because you want a cow that will look after her calf, look after it well, because the calf responds positively as well. And you've got that other advantage that she's going to protect that calf as well.
Yes.
This breed has got exceptionally good udders. You're looking at a beef breed basically, so you don't want a pendulous udder too big, but you don't want a too small udder. You want good, strong, well-placed teats. And if you walked through those cattle yesterday, just looked at the udders, fantastic udders. Ren Harvey started life as a milk producer. So he knew all about problems with teats and udders and things like that. And here's a breed that just doesn't have any problem. But there's enough milk to rear a good calf, and that's what it's all about. Look, they've just got very strong hooves. If you looked at those claws, the claws are open slightly. And that's a good thing as well, so there's enough room there. They don't get stones caught in between the claws and things like that. So you've got an open, strong hoof. You see the size of that hoof as well. That's the hoof of an animal that can walk long distances, and that's what you want. Yeah, if you start from, one of the biggest problems these days is flies biting and sucking lice, things, ticks and that. And so the animal needs to be able to groom itself. If you look at a tule, number one, it's got a long, thin tail, so there's a good fly swatter. Because of the way it's built, in other words, the humans haven't messed around with it too much. It can groom itself. In other words, it can lean back and lick at parts where there could be something bothering it. It could scratch its ear with its hind foot and things like that. So you've got an animal that can groom. Then you've got a skin that has got very well developed panniculus muscles just under the skin. So if a fly lands on that animal, you'll see it sort of gives a bit of a tremor. Now that's a reaction to the fly settling on it, and then that chases the fly away. You don't find those muscles in your European breeds because they don't need them. And then it's also got what we call an immune reaction to the actual tick starting to bite. So that's why they talk about a tick-tolerant breed, because it actually has an immune reaction. In other words, the area around the tick bite irritates the tick, and the tick eventually, drops off and it doesn't complete its cycle. So that's another thing. And then, of course, the skin as well. I think this is important. We haven't actually looked at the sweat glands of a tule, but your hot climate adapted animals that evolved in hot climates have got baggy sweat glands. So they sweat more. The sweat glands are nearer the surface, and there's more of them than you would find, for example, in a European breed where it's a coiled sweat gland. There's less because they don't need to sweat so often. So it's all these little things that add up to being able to offset the changing conditions and the current conditions. They have very strong enamel, and unlike other breeds, this enamel seems to get stronger as they grow older. There was some work done by a fellow called Steenkamp in Zimbabwe. They looked at Nguni cattle there, but Ngunis and Tulis are both Sangas, so you can, they both got the same sort of things. And the enamel is very hard. So you'll find, an old cow of say 14, 15 years still having a full set of teeth. It goes on up to 20 years plus. A lot of your European breeds, the teeth wear down quite fast. So you eventually end up with a cow that can't fend for itself. It doesn't have teeth, so it can't cut grass, and you've got to either feed it or you've got to get rid of it. So this is a big plus for a breed like this, the fact that they've got very, very strong teeth. And they'll last longer. And what you want to do with these breeds is, if a cow's calving, you keep it until it stops calving. Because that's a very, very important trait, is longevity. And this is what you find in these indigenous breeds. They live longer because their teeth and everything are still working. Yeah, they just have a different lung. You've got two types. You've got what they call a metabolic type, which is more your European breed. They have to adapt to cold climates, so they want to store energy. And then you've got what we call a respiratory type, which is more your African breeds, your Asian breeds, where these animals have to have less exposure to the sun, so they tend to be thinner if you look at them from the top. And they also have a bigger lung capacity, which means that they can use the evaporated cooling in the lungs to actually lower temperature as well. They control temperature that way. So, and this is important. Your European breed doesn't need to do that. So that's why it has a different structure as far as the lungs are concerned. So you have an animal that's well adapted, good temperament, and it has top quality beef. Our Sangha breeds have got really good quality beef. So you can either use them as pure breeds in a beef marketing system or beef production system, or you could cross them with another good beef breed. An example would be an Angus, for example, that you could cross a tule with an Angus and produce a calf for the feedlot as well. Either terminal crossbreeding, that's where you use a a small to medium frame female with another heavier beef breed, or the other way around, that you would use your Tuli bull on a small to medium frame breed. There's enough difference, for example, between a Tuli and a Brahman to give you a lot of heterosis. So your forced crosses are going to be good animals that can be used for the feedlot, etc. I think that's the important thing. You've got a breed from Africa, for Africa, well adapted, suited to the climate, and suited to climate change as well. A rest for grazer, and whether we like it or not, the majority of our beef comes from the veld.
Israel, this is it. Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I speak unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Egypt? Yeah, man. This is talking about the spiritual Egypt, America, the house of bondage.
Oh, that's how our Western journey began.
Yeah, man. Israel gone captivity for breaking your law. We were driven out of Israel by the Roman Empire. Seek some refuge in our West Africa. Then the Arab and the Hamite sold us to Esau. Them pack us on the slave ship to America. Enslave us, fire on the slave master. But the scripture said, you must be a fierce slaughters. For the iniquities of your forefathers. Chihuahua.
Y'all love